Hola, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roderick Miller, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Invest Puerto Rico, the island's economic development organization. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the Puerto Rico Tech Talk. It's a conversation where Invest Puerto Rico, together with leaders in the island's tech and innovation sector, highlight the advanced state of technology and the tech skills on the island and how these are advancing key strategic sectors of our economy. Puerto Rico's flourishing tech ecosystem is increasing in its capabilities by the minute, lending value to a wide variety of enterprises that have much to gain from doing business here. Technology, both in research and development as well as in implementation, is an important part of our economic DNA and overall value proposition for investment. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to our distinguished panel. With us today, we have Alberto Lugo, president of Invid, one of the leading software development and consulting service providers in the Americas. Christian Gonzalez, CEO of Wovenware, a leading AI and tech consultancy that's been on Inc. magazine's annual list of fastest growing private US companies for 5 times. And Isabel Ruyan, the executive director of Comprometidos, a local nonprofit that seeks to increase ties with the Puerto Rican diaspora. And last but not least, today's talk will be led by Brian Borgerie, our Innovation and Entrepreneurship Manager. Now, before we begin, I'd like to point out that we are eager to address your questions. But to do so, please use the chat box located on the right side panel of the meeting screen. Questions will be presented in the order they are submitted during the assigned Q&A session. And now, I leave you with Brian. Enjoy.
Thanks, Rod. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Very excited for this webinar we'll be doing. I came down here with tech startups myself. I've been working in this space for a while now, and this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because Puerto Rico has so much to offer. We only have an hour, so we're going to jump right into an overview of the tech ecosystem here in Puerto Rico, what's going on, how did we get here, and we have some awesome panelists, as you heard Rod mention, that are going to give us a deeper dive and a good look from the inside of what we have going on here in Puerto Rico. So to start out, Puerto Rico offers companies, firms, the chance to grow. So obviously we're not like a San Francisco or an Austin or anything like that, but for the last almost decade now, Puerto Rico has been growing and at an increasing pace with the number of not just tech companies, but companies and business in general. So one of my favorite parts about working here and living here is the startup and entrepreneur ecosystem. There is so much going on. There's so many cool startups. We have accelerators and incubators are going through. But there's also a lot of lifestyle companies. Sometimes these tech companies aren't necessarily trying to be the next unicorn, but just be a profitable lifestyle type business that employs a good number of people, but not necessarily trying to go crazy. I found Puerto Rico is a great place for that, but also obviously for growth companies as well. And then you have, for example, the large companies like Microsoft, who's been here for a couple dozen years or so, and other big ones as well, doing big things. So you'll find a little bit of everything here on the island. And what's most exciting is that it's growing at an increasing rate. Some of the faster growing industries here are blockchain, fintech in general, insurance, health tech, 5G, IoT, a lot of different connectivity. AI for sure. We'll hear more about that from Christian. Analytics and just custom software development as well, among many other sectors. And one of the reasons for that is obviously we have a good ecosystem, but we also have certain things that other ecosystems don't have. So some of the unique things I want to highlight about Puerto Rico's ecosystem are that it's a perfect testing ground for technologies. And I say that because I literally moved a company down and started another one here. And that was one of the big 3 reasons we came down. Utilizing what we have here, the population that likes to test technologies, but also, in my case, I was working in hardware, connectivity, plug and play home servers, things like that. Being able to test in this type of environment with thick concrete walls and being able to refine products in an environment such as Puerto Rico would make our products better everywhere else in the world. Another reason coming down here, especially for technology and anything with research and development, is Puerto Rico, in my opinion, is probably the best place to develop your IP. We have all the protections of the U.S. government and federal law. However, when it comes to tax purposes, things like that, we're treated uniquely as a foreign jurisdiction, which when you grow globally or expand out with your IP, becomes beneficial on the tax side as well. Leading into that is we also have, in my opinion, and probably most others, the most unique tax incentives anywhere in the United States. Everything from getting up to 50% back in all of your R&D expenditures and tradable tax credits that you can sell on exchange and get that money back in cash, to export services, being able to pay 4% corporate tax on anything that you export from Puerto Rico, for example, software development services or Microsoft. Anytime you update something from Microsoft here in the Americas, it comes through Puerto Rico. Down to individual tax incentives as well, like 0% capital gains and other things like that. We'll go into that another time, but wanted to hit on that. And then we have a majorly bilingual population. The majority speak both English and Spanish here. So that's obviously important. Another thing to hit on is resiliency. So as you've probably seen in the news, there's been hurricanes. 3 years ago, we got hit pretty hard. Sometimes maybe there's been other natural disasters or even bankruptcies, things like that. But what I've found, and I've lived in a number of different tech ecosystems, is that Puerto Rico's is the most resilient. Sometimes it comes out of necessity, but with what I've seen, if there's ever a setback next day or right away, everyone's up, ready to go, and it doesn't set us back. It's not something so catastrophic that it breaks the will of the people who are working or anything like that. And I've seen Puerto Rico be able to bounce back better than probably anywhere else that I've observed. And that's important in today's day and age. My favorite, however, is the community and the ecosystem here. It's a very engaged community overall, and there's been many groups, meetups, events that go on that have been helping connect people, not just those who have come down here, but there's a big talent pool as well. And the population here is very educated, especially when it comes to, for example, STEM and engineering, things like that, where we have some of the top universities in the entire world for graduating top engineers that like to get plucked up by some of the biggest companies in the world. We have innovation hubs, Engine 4, for example. We have IoT centers of excellence being built out, Science City, maker spaces. There's so much, and I wish I could go into all of those in detail, but we'll hit on those and we'll share some information after this as well. Support organizations for entrepreneurs, for growing companies, for those raising capital, and just a collaborative work environment with co-working spaces. And one of the things that I've really liked is talking to these businesses that have been established here, especially technology firms that maybe have grown through the last 2 or 3 decades here in Puerto Rico. They're very willing to mentor and help and contribute and counsel with other tech companies that are looking to grow. The last thing I'm going to hit on before we jump in with our panelists is we're building out an investment platform here at Invest Puerto Rico. We're doing that for a few reasons, but with the burgeoning ecosystem, especially in technologies, we've also found that there's a lot of investment interest. Ironically, a large number of the conversations that I have with people interested in Puerto Rico come from the investment side. I have companies, family offices coming down looking for companies to buy or to invest in, to work with. I have investors that have started to put a requirement for some of their companies to set up shop in Puerto Rico because of the benefits and the ecosystem here that they can grow in. So what we're doing is we're building out a platform that's going to help facilitate the connection and visibility of projects, of companies, and investors. We'll be able to highlight and plug into all the different startups coming through, as well as growth stage and funds. And we'll be going more into that in another video another time. But I did want to make sure that everyone's knows that this is going to be available very soon and that we'd love to collaborate with you on it. So that's a quick overview from my point, but let's talk to some of the people who are down in the trenches and working on it. So we'll start out with Alberto. Hello.
Hi, how are you, Brian?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. So Alberto's awesome. He just got off another webinar and he's already on another one. So he's a hot commodity.
We were just talking about this topic, so let's go.
Well, perfect. Well, let's dive into, I guess, introduce yourself a little bit, what you do with Invid, as well as you're part of the Puerto Rico IT cluster. Is that correct?
That's correct. Invid, it's a software development company founded and based in here in Puerto Rico. We've been in business for about 17 years now. And if I can summarize what we do is that we simplify processes, we automate workflow, and we measure results for our clients. And we do that by creating custom software. So that's what we do in a nutshell. And we do that for different verticals. We work a lot with the local government. We work with different companies in the US, and we work with the healthcare industry as well. Being on an island, you know that there's not many clients in each specific industry. So that's why we had a broad spectrum of clients across most of the verticals. And we've been focusing on our growth in outsourcing to the US companies and the federal government, because we have a few certifications such as the 8A and HubZone and all that. And you were talking about the Puerto Rico IT cluster. I want to read what we do because it's very important for folks to know what the cluster is all about. And the cluster is a nonprofit organization that advocates for and represents the IT industry to decision makers and leaders in the government and the IT sector. So I think that's very important because we're trying to help companies in Puerto Rico be state of the art and they can compete in the worldwide arena. And that's what we're doing with the cluster.
Awesome. So going a little bit deeper with the cluster, what's the makeup of the cluster of companies and types of companies? And are they a bunch of young companies? Have they been around for a while?
Yeah. So I would say that the cluster has a great mix of different types of companies that are in the startup world, infancy, and then a lot of companies that have been in business for a while, 10 plus years. So there's a mix of people and there's a mix of needs for each one of them. Some of them are looking for better government policies. Some of them are looking to export services. Some of them are looking to tap into the federal space. So we try to help as much as we can the ecosystem. And we're also a 501c3. So we also invested in helping Puerto Rico retain talent, have people work here, find job for people that are young, that are looking for jobs in the market and they don't have that much experience. And we're also looking with Isabel and Christian from Wovenware to bring back people to Puerto Rico so we can keep growing our businesses and we can keep bringing new companies to the island so they can find talent.
Sure. So one other thing I want to jump into is, if you're okay talking about it, you and one of your partner have started a new co-working space.
Yeah.
And that's getting going. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and why you decided to do that here?
So I think that's how we met. A couple of years ago, I was looking for to grow our business in terms of square footage of the office, and it was getting pretty difficult to find something attractive that I liked. And I was talking to a friend, which happens to have another IT company, and I was having the same problem. We've been in the US for a while, working in Washington, D.C., both of us. And we saw some of the co-working spaces that were working in those areas. And we fell in love with the culture, all the connections that you can make in those places. So we partner and purchase a building in Santurce, which is one of the upcoming areas for financial. I call it the old financial district, but it's coming alive fairly quickly in the past few years. And we have 5-story building with co-working spaces. And what makes it great is that we can control the experience. It's not just an office in a building; it's the whole thing. So we've been doing the remodeling for the past 2 years. We actually acquired the building prior to Maria, the Hurricane Maria, and we've been working with architects and construction workers for the past 2 years, and we're finally finished the first phase of the project. And one of the great things for our company is that we can grow fairly fast because you can take another office and it's the same experience. You don't have to remodel another office. And it's something like COVID happens, you can downsize as well, which is what we did. We took less office space, and that took us only a month. And then when everything it's finished, we can go back, we can grow faster. So right now we have about 130 desks, and we're going to grow up to 250 spaces when we're finished with the second phase.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of the things. That is how we met. We're checking out the space. I help run a lot of entrepreneur group and events and things here on the island, and we're scoping things out. And I loved what you guys are doing.
And you can also talk about your experience in the building. I think you like it a lot when you were there. You mentioned a few things, so you can also talk about your experience there.
Sure, yeah. And I'll bring this in a broader scale for everyone too. So there's a number of different co-working spaces and collaboration spaces here on the island. There's ones that have been around longer, like Piloto 151. There's
Correct.
Luna Space. There's Coco House. So there's a number of them all around, which is great. And they're all kind of unique in their own different way. And that's what I love. So you can kind of have, depending what you're looking for, you can probably find what you need when it comes to a collaborative type working space, if you're not going to buy your own. One thing I did like about what you guys have, and we've actually done a couple of real estate events on your first floor, is you have like a stage set up, and you can be social distance too, because it's pretty big. But it's a good spot to have events and get people together. And that's one thing that I love. And I mentioned earlier just about the community here, but the collaborative aspect, and then the ability that you mentioned to not just grow, but even contract if you need to, when it comes to, a COVID or something like that happening, is super important. So you have a pretty good view in your experience with the IT cluster, growing your company here. What would you say are one or two of, I guess, the top reasons why you started and continue to run your company out of Puerto Rico? And then after that, let's jump into maybe a couple challenges that you see from your position in IT cluster here as well.
I started the company fairly young. So I was 23 when I started the company. It was my second job. So I really didn't have a clue where I was going to start it. So it might as well be in Puerto Rico because I lived here. So I started the company because of that. But as the year went by, I started reflecting on giving back to the community. And I really started, and I think Kristen is going to also resonate with this statement, because I think both companies are trying to create high-paying jobs and trying to create decent jobs for the community and for people to stay here and for people to have a good lifestyle here on the island. So that's one of the main reasons I started it. And I although we are exporting services and growing the company and hiring people in other places, we want to keep growing, and that's one of the things that we have done. It's the building. Right, we have partnered with another company to buy a building because we trust we're gonna keep growing the business, and we're gonna also be hosting other people. And something that I wanted to mention is that Puerto Ricans are very collaborative. So, for example, Kristen is my direct competition, but we are also good friends. And Piloto is one of the competitions for the space, and Coco House, but we are good friends as well. So you're definitely gonna see that. Camaraderie here on the island, where companies are not enemies. They also collaborate where they can, and they share experiences and notes on where to grow and how to work better. And your other question was about challenges.
Yeah, and you can speak specifically from your business or on a broader scale from what you see working with other IT companies and technology companies.
I would say sometimes some of the challenges, and I would say this holds true for everybody in the U.S. as well that is watching this podcast or this show, is that it's difficult to recruit good talent in any industry. It's not just in IT industry. It's difficult to get people that are good performers, and it's difficult to get people. I was talking to Isabel before the podcast started, and she said that they were also looking for accounting people. So it's difficult to source talent. And that holds true in most major cities in the US as well. So Puerto Rico has the same issue. And also, I would say that um, trying to sell in the US where people understand the benefits of Puerto Rico and that they understand that Puerto Rico it's really part of the US and they can put the made in the US label and they can defend IP protection with the federal laws. That's something that is a challenge because most of our clients in the US, when we talk to them, they don't really know. When we started visiting federal clients, they didn't know. They didn't know Puerto Rico was part of the US. Most people didn't know that they could defend IP protection for their software, which is one of the big benefits of doing business in Puerto Rico, and that they could benefit for getting better rates. So that's getting the message across. I think it's a challenge, and also sourcing talent. I think it's a challenge for every industry, everywhere in the world. So Puerto Rico is no different than that in that manner.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that I've loved is
That makes sense, Brian.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. And that there's going to be trends that are going to be similar everywhere, especially as we're getting to a more digital age where cybersecurity is needed by everyone everywhere. However, we had some pretty good experience when we started a software development company. I was able to actually hire all of our people here. This was in the blockchain industry, which is also new, so that's kind of tough. But we were able to find what we needed here and grow in that regard. So as you mentioned, I mean, it also just really depends on what industry and sector you're in, where things are going. So last thing, what is your favorite part about living here in Puerto Rico?
Kite surfing.
There we go. Awesome.
I can get out of the office at 5 p.m. and I can go to the beach in 5 minutes and kite surf for an hour before the suns go down. I think that's something that it's not work related, but it's one of the things that really I truly enjoy outside of the business world, because we are all kind of workaholics here in the business industry. But I truly enjoy the the peacefulness that you get from the beach, and that you can definitely go in 5 minutes from the office to that area and really enjoy the sunset and all that. And in terms of industry, I truly enjoy meeting new folks as yourself and challenging people with different questions and getting to network with different industries and different professionals. And I think we get a lot of that because we are in the Caribbean. There's also a great deal of events happening every day, or prior to COVID, obviously, but you get a lot of meeting people and having a great time. So it's not just about work; it's just about quality of life. And I think you can get that on the island.
Awesome. Well, great. Thank you. We'll jump back when we bring everyone together. We're going to move on now and welcome Christian from Wovenware.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Hey, Brian. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us. I know you're a busy guy. Have a very fast growing company, at least according to some major news outlets. So let's dive in. What's Wovenware? Who are you? What are you doing? Tell us kind of your story, because you have a pretty good story with your company.
Yes. Well, let's start at the end, right? We're an artificial intelligence consultancy. We have a very strong background in software engineering, going back 17 years, like Alberto. And in the past couple of years, we've been developing artificial intelligence solutions for different, public companies, the federal government, and that has allowed us, to get into amazing projects with this amazing technology. We have three differentiating capabilities in Wovenware. That's a human-centered approach to service design. Second, and one of the most important, which is what I just told you, which is the artificial intelligence experience. Recently, we were highlighted in Forrester's computer vision wave as a strong performer, and we're very proud of that. And in the end, process. We have a lot of processes in place. We're HIPAA compliant, ISO. We have a facilities clearance from the Department of Defense, and that gives us a lot of capabilities. We're a small company with a lot of process and a lot of different things. We're 140 people in the company. Most of us are based here in Puerto Rico. I think maybe 5% of those are in the States. Half of what we do, half of our work is on the States too. So we have clients all over, in California, in Oregon, in Virginia, Tennessee. We also have clients in Denmark and Dominican Republic.
And what types of clients are there? Are they big companies? Are they small companies? Well,
for example, in Denmark, we're working with the biggest telecommunications company, Dansk Kabel. We have in the States, we're working with public companies. We're working with the Department of Defense. I don't know how much bigger than that you can you can get. And then locally, we're working also with public companies. So we're this amazing technology, artificial intelligence. Particularly, we work with with computer vision, and that has allowed us to kind of spread our wings and explore in a lot of different areas where we hadn't before. And that's why I mentioned the Forrester thing, because sometimes you say, well, I'm working with AI. Well, not really. You're using some APIs or some stuff.
Sure.
We have a data science team, we have a data labeling team, and we have our software engineers, which I mentioned in all, we're around 140. So that's a little bit of what do we do.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously you're already here, but like, why Puerto Rico? I mean, you work with companies all around the world.
Yep.
Why have you decided to continue to make Puerto Rico your home?
Well, first, I mean, there's when I founded the company with my friend and the COO of the company, Carlos Melendez, and when I started the company, I'm an engineer out of the University of Maya West del Colegio. I'm a computer engineer, and all of my friends were leaving for the States. At that time, that this is around the 2000s. NASA, IBM, Motorola, a lot of companies all the time. And so why is it that they weren't staying in Puerto Rico? Well, it was a little bit of, well, the jobs are not here. Then maybe the industries weren't hiring software developers at that time. I mean, it was the tech bubble at that time. And I said, hey, there's got to be a way where I can generate, the demand for those engineers to stay, right? And we have a very important social responsibility to keep growing this in Puerto Rico as long as we can, even though we have a corporation in California. We're opening another one in Delaware to enable us to continue our work with our local clients and with our clients in the States. So it is, that's the main reason. Aside from that, Puerto Rico has always had a very strong manufacturing sector. So the talent that comes out of that is it's world-class talent.
Yep.
And So in between, between the universities that we have a bunch of universities with different specialties, each one of them, and the talent that comes out of manufacturing, biopharma, pharma, medical devices. There's a big pool of talent.
Hmm.
The tech talent. Yeah, I mean it's hard everywhere, but the talent that comes out of the universities here is a lot of talent and a
Yep,
lot of good
definitely.
talent. So we're gonna stay here as long as we can.
Awesome. So I want to move future looking a little bit more and some of the
Yeah.
cool things that are going on.
Yeah.
So I had briefly mentioned earlier on in this that we have some innovation hubs and things like that. And you are uh, deeply involved with a new one. Would you want to tell us about it?
You want me to talk about 5G, right?
Yep, let's
That
do
is,
it.
yeah. Um, we have some local partners, along with Invest, that had the contacts and had the access to a 5G lab in Indiana that was funded in part by the federal government. They made those introductions, and we have been able, with them, to establish a 5G lab in Maya West. Maya West, as I mentioned, is the big engineering school here in Puerto Rico, and that's going to allow not only me, it's not about me, but the industry in general, to access a lab to test products, technology in a 5G environment. And I don't know about all of you that are watching this video conference, but when I go to the federal government and I go to industry days and they say, well, our interests are X, Y, and Z, there's always artificial intelligence, but right next to it, it's 5G. And it's a technology that I think it's going to be very important in the future. And to have a lab to be able to test that locally, it's going to be amazing. Right now, we have access to the Indiana 5G lab while we construct. Not we again, not we, but
Sure.
while it's constructed, right? And I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I'm super excited about as well, having worked in that space.
Yeah.
And for everyone to know, Puerto Rico has an awesome infrastructure overall when it comes to new technologies like 5G. There's 3 networks here. Even T-Mobile also has a 5G hub. I think
Hmm.
it's 10 gigabit up and down. And I was watching some speed tests, and they're getting close to those levels, which is insane. Um, this new hub that you're talking about in the West, and us at Invest Puerto Rico and some other groups have been working together on this, and we're excited about it
Hmm.
because it's going to plug in across the country. There's a lot of federal interest from the government for security reasons, for manufacturing and supply chain, and all these different things.
Hmm.
Um, and it's going to be awesome because it's open. I mean, you're a private company, so it's open to private companies to come and test and figure things out and refine these technologies, not have to go overseas to do it, not have to go through maybe a bunch of hoops. So that's one
Hmm.
thing that's super exciting, especially for anyone in the technology space that's utilizing IoT and things like that.
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
we have 2 LoRa networks across the island. A new one by EveryNet recently came out that I think encompasses like 95% or more of the island. So there's a lot of infrastructure that's being laid um, in the connectivity sphere
Yeah.
that anyone who's working in technology, especially in hardware, should be aware of.
Yeah.
So, last thing, what's your favorite thing about living in Puerto Rico?
Oh, well, for me, it's different from Alberto. It's the countryside. I love coffee. Coffee in Puerto Rico is, you know, sublime experience. Everybody knows here in the office. Um, and I love to spend, a weekend on the mountains. Uh, you might think of Puerto Rico as hotter weather, right? 90s and 80s. But we're in Christmas. Yesterday was 55 in the center of the island, in Adjuntas, and at home it's around. It was like 65 or something like that. So right now it's beautiful, it's great, and but still, if you come to the coast, it's 85 right now, and beautiful to go to the beach. So I love the countryside. I love to stay and overnight, and you know, be up in the mountain.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that too. I mean, you can have a little bit
Yeah,
of everything. Not
yeah.
necessarily snow like I'm used to in Minnesota, but
No, no,
almost
no, no, no,
everything else.
no, no. You can zip line, and you can leave the snow.
Yep.
Leave it there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. We'll jump back again at the end with everyone. We're going to move on now to our next guest, Isabel. So, welcome, Isabel.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So I'm excited to have you on, to give another perspective of things, and kind of from a nonprofit community side. I mean, a lot of us and a lot of people watching run tech companies, and we're in the grind on that front. But as with anything, any successful business, any successful person, there's an ecosystem around that you need to have if you're really going to grow and be strong. So let's dive into a little bit. Tell us about what you do, your organization, and we'll go from there.
Great. So, Comprometidos started in 2012. Our mission is to create a stable, productive, and self sufficient Puerto Rico. And when we launched the organization, it was actually a movement that we launched in New York, Miami, DC, and San Juan to try to get Puerto Ricans to be more involved and committed to giving back to the island. Ever since we started, we learned that there were so many Puerto Ricans and Puerto Rican allies outside the island that really wanted to help. And so we created a program to allow for that, to create that bridge and that connection, to bring speakers to local conferences, to connect mentors and advisors with a startup ecosystem, which was starting to boom at that moment. Mm-hmm. And something that happened organically was to try to bring back some of that talent back to the island. People that had either studied in Puerto Rico and went to work abroad, or that had studied abroad and wanted to come back, but didn't know where those opportunities were. So we started to create those connections. To be honest, at that time, there weren't as many job opportunities as there is now. So we did that for a while. But when Irma and Maria came, we changed our focus for a bit, right? So we had this huge need to go out and really help the communities. So we raised millions of dollars with donations of Puerto Ricans and non-Puerto Ricans that have been here maybe for a vacation and fell in love with the island, and then ended up donating money. Yep. And that money really has allowed us for the past 3 years to give out grants to community projects all across the island. We have over 30 projects that we've worked with, community-led projects. That project has been going very well. But this year we decided it was the moment. We were ready to reactivate that network, because one of our main pillars is economic development. And we've been listening to the private sector. The private sector, which is a huge engine, for our economy, and has really been growing exponentially, especially the technology sector. And they were telling us, comprometidos, please, do a little bit of what you did before, help us. And we thought it was a perfect moment. So we just recently launched El Comeback last week, which is El Comeback is like the comeback of Puerto Rico and the comeback of talent. We speak a lot of Spanglish here. That's why it's El Comeback. And we're really excited with the results we've seen until now. We have many people that are registering, and not only, in technology, but we have other industries, other people that have registered in other industries that want to come back. And yeah, this is the perfect moment for that.
Awesome. So we were talking about this, I think yesterday. I've noticed that there is an outsized number of Puerto Rican diaspora that want to come back to the island. And every time we have a meetup, I'm meeting more that just moved back, or maybe they even never lived here, but there's something about Puerto Rico. I wasn't born here, although I have family who's lived here for about 40 years or so, but there's something about Puerto Rico and it's hard to express in words, but people want to come back, people coming down. And I've noticed there's a lot of interest in coming back to the island. And what I've seen, and you can tell me if you've seen something different, I've seen some of the smartest people I've ever met who have been off doing things I wouldn't have even imagined all of a sudden popping up and back here and wanting to get involved, or they just exited their company and they're coming back and they're wanting to plug in, maybe start something else, maybe mentor. Have you been seeing similar sorts of, I guess?
Definitely. It's about the culture. People fall in love with the culture. It's about the familiar environment, as Alberto and Christian mentioned. It's a very collaborative place. When many times when I have these conversations with people that studied here and left, at the moment, because as Christian said, at the moment maybe that those opportunities weren't here, so they left, or they just wanted a new experience, and it's perfectly fine.
Sure.
But when it comes to the moment of like, oh, I'm thinking about having kids, or like, planting my raíces, my roots, they want to be close to their family, and but most of all, they want an upbringing of that culture of everyone, pre-COVID times hugging, and it's very warm environment, it's very welcoming. People talk to their neighbors, and it's about diversity that exists here, where everyone coexists in a good environment. And I think some of the polarization that has been happening right now in the States doesn't really help either. So people are like, I would like to go back and be in Puerto Rico.
Sure.
So it has to do a lot with that, and also because people are very proud, so they really want to help. And the same thing that happens with the private sector happens with the non-for-profit sector. We're all so eager to move the island forward, that we're working collaboratively to help each other out, and there is a collaboration between the three sectors.
Awesome. So one thing I love about what you guys are doing, and others as well, is there's a lot of proactivity going on here to prepare for the future, especially in technology. I mean, hence, like, I'll come back and we've just been seeing a growth in the tech sector, and I've been very encouraged by what I've seen of again being proactive in attracting more talent, but also, and you might know more than I do on this front, I've been seeing more and more coding camps and other things like that springing up. Have you seen similar things, or what are some of the resources and things that are going on to help, I guess, be ready to grow with this growing tech sector here on the island?
So yes, I mean, there are a few coding schools. The most recent one being Holberton, which is providing opportunity for people to study coding, and it's for free. But then the person, once they graduate, they have to pay a percentage of that first salary, second back to paying their education.
Sure.
But also, I mean, I think one of the biggest assets that Puerto Rico has, and it was mentioned before, are the universities. The universities here are accessible. The tuition is very accessible to many people, and if not, you can get some student money, right? But I honestly think that one of the biggest assets the island has is definitely the University of Puerto Rico. It allows people to really have a great education without having that huge student debt. That is also a big problem that happens in the States, that it's people are constantly talking about, because it's really not fair. But over here, it's really more democratized. I think the education is more democratized in terms of university level.
Yeah, I really like that, being able to be very accessible. But when you see, especially what on the engineering and STEM side, like, every top company in the world wants to snatch up graduates from Puerto Rico all the time. And
they're bilinguals, and definitely, I studied in Puerto Rico. The job fair was full of companies from abroad. But what we're telling them is like, okay, you went, you saw, you had that experience, now come back. Now there are opportunities. We're waiting for you.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna go jump in now with everyone and have kind of a big Q&A. We've had lots of questions come in. I'll disclaimer now, we're not going to be able to answer all the questions that have been submitted live, but we will respond with other content through email and in other ways to answer your questions. So before we dive into all the questions, something I want to hit on, and maybe this will frame some areas where you guys can jump in. we talked about some of the networks and infrastructure and things getting set up here when it comes to 5G or IoT or other things like that. And I just want to point out something interesting. If you follow tech for a while, especially over the decades, you'll see leapfrogging that happens. And being from, if you've lived in the States or being from the States or maybe certain parts of Europe, like you've gone along and had every new thing like as it happens. And you just kind of get used to it and whatever. But then you get to places like Africa where they haven't had anything for a long time and they're just skipping hardwired internet and they're skipping everything going straight to cell phones. I see a version of that here in Puerto Rico as well, which I'm actually super excited about. And in my opinion, it's one of the best, it's one of the reasons why Puerto Rico is such a good test bed for technologies, especially in hardware and things like that and infrastructure, because it's been a little delayed compared to maybe other states in getting certain things, but that's afforded us the opportunity to leapfrog certain technologies. And that's why like T-Mobile comes here to put their best stuff first and to test things out. And we're able to do things like that. So that's just something I wanted to hit on. And along that same vein, what are some of the things that you guys are excited about in the technology sphere specifically here in Puerto Rico that you see unfolding over the next maybe 1 to 3 years? Let's start with Christian, Alberto, and Isabel. If you want to jump in as well, you can.
Well, it is true what you just mentioned regarding, for example, 5G. You know, it's we're getting early on that technology. I think it's there's a lot of interest from a lot of people around it. I don't necessarily agree that we're leapfrogging because here in Puerto Rico, I think 4G LTE was everywhere.
Sure.
And 4G before that, and 3G before that. This is a very mature market in terms of technology. Where we have fiber in some areas of Puerto Rico for the home. I have fiber here in the office. There's fiber everywhere. But I think for me, what gets me excited, and I mentioned this at the beginning, it's all what we're doing with artificial intelligence. I mean, there's been a lot of buzzwords along the years in a lot of different areas.
For sure.
But this is real. I mean, this is the results. You have to, of course, you have to test and you have to experiment and you have to do some R&D around it. But the performance and the things that we're doing are very, very, very real, and they impact a lot of the industries that we're working on. So that's really what's getting me really excited about the future.
Awesome.
I would say along those lines, I truly can relate to that, and I would say that's totally correct. I will also add IoT and blockchain. I think on the island there's a huge ecosystem around blockchain, and even the government has piggybacked and started creating incentives and different have the conversation going around it. And the IoT laboratory that Engine 4 created in Bayamon, I think it's also state of the art, and they are doing great things in that area, and they are researching all that. So that gets me very excited along the 5G and AI that Christian was mentioning.
I want to jump in real quick on that. I mean, yes, I'm biased. I've worked in decentralized technology.
I did mention blockchain because I wanted to use it.
You got me going. You hit the button. Now you can't stop. No, I will put a plug in that. So I've been around blockchain and just decentralized technologies in general. I mean, plug and play servers and mesh Wi-Fi and other things like that. But I've lived in other tech hubs. However, Puerto Rico is by far my favorite when it comes to blockchain and other decentralized technologies. Even out when you get to solar microgrids, like anything decentralized, there's a lot going on here. And there's, I think, in my opinion, one of the highest concentrations of the smartest people in the world down here working on that. When we have a Crypto Mondays meetup, and we had one a couple of weeks ago, we had 5 or 6 people who you would be lucky ever in your life to have come to one of your meetups, even once, we had them all together, and it's almost like a regular occurrence having some of the top minds in these, and it's super exciting. And then you have there's these secret engineers that are like literally hanging from trees coding in like a desk they made in the jungle. One of you, if you're watching, you probably know I'm talking about you. But yeah, there's ones that like some of the smartest people ever building the coolest tech ever, but you don't even know they exist because they're literally in the jungle hanging from a tree coding. And it's just so interesting, some of the stuff that I found. So you got me going, but definitely when it comes to blockchain and things like that, I'm going to second that. Super exciting. From what you've seen, Isabel, on that note, for those who are coming back, why? Like why? But besides, we talked about the like they want to come home and things like that. But when it comes to technology or opportunities, are you seeing any trends there or major points of interest?
I definitely see a sector that really collaborate. All of these entrepreneurs, Alberto, Christian, and all the others, they are really working together. They have a lot of activities, make people feel welcomed. You're gonna be here in obviously pre-COVID times, but still now there are a lot of conversations going on and Zoom calls that are happening right now. But in 3 months, you get to know, if you really want to go out there and participate in all the activities that exist in the island, you're gonna get to know everyone that's doing something, and everyone really, you pick up the phone and you ask them for anything, and any people are willing to help. And I think that's the biggest thing that I also tell my colleagues. You can be a little fish in a big fishbowl. You can go to New York and you're one more person, but here in Puerto Rico, it's really 2 degrees of separation of getting to a CEO that you want to present an idea or a concept or get their feedback. And in terms of younger talent, I really see, and I when we started the organization, we've always had the support of our board of directors, and they're all people that really want to help the next generation move forward. And I keep seeing that over and over again.
Awesome. So let's see here. We have a bunch of questions. We'll get to a few more. So, and I don't actually know this. When it comes to, we have interest on funding and investment opportunities and things like that. I don't even know. Like, has Wovenware or Invid? How did you guys grow? Did you need to seek outside capital? Were you self-sustaining? I don't even know.
Well,
Talk about that.
that's a good question. When we started, there wasn't really an investment community. There were maybe one or two. John Money. Yeah, that's a good guy. It's there wasn't an investment community. Now there is. Now there's a bunch of funds. That's what Alberto was trying to say. We're both bootstrapped. Now we're bigger companies. It's a different kind of investment that we're going to need to grow to the next level. But now there's options. There's a lot more options.
I would add to that there's different angel groups organized on the island, and there's also corporate investors that are looking for the angels are looking for startups, and Parallel 18 is pairing startups with these groups of angels. And also there's also corporate venture capital, not a bunch, but there's a few of them that look for growing business to put money and converting fire into fire.
Yeah.
So there's a few options, not a lot, but there's a few options, and they are pretty well organized, and you can search for them. They have meetups you can present. And I don't know if Kristen is doing this, but we are also investing in younger companies that are coming with different types of solutions, and we are mentoring them and investing in them. So there's a bunch of different options now that we didn't get when we started. And that's why I was showing this book, because we both went to this Guayacan Venture Accelerator program, and one of the professors gave us this book, which is The Client Funded Business, which I recommend if you're looking to grow your business and not necessarily providing equity for a firm.
Yeah, and I like that too, and that kind of speaks to the diversity of who can be successful here and what types of companies. Because I mean, you can be a self-funded or customer-funded.
Yeah.
But there's also investment opportunities, and different types of businesses need different things. Some don't need outside investment, and others, if you're going to go in the trajectory you need to, or with technologies that are growing exponentially, you're going to need that outside capital. And it has grown a lot, even just over the last 4 or 5 years. It's gone from maybe a couple players to a number of private equity groups, angel groups, even some VC funds.
Correct.
ATO Ventures is working on closing a fund now focused on kind of like pre-seed and companies that are wanting to still find their product market fit validation stage, which is really hard to raise capital in. But I'm starting to see the groundwork across the entire capital stack for companies that want to grow. Again, it's not Silicon Valley or anything like that, but we have our own flavor of things, and I'm really bullish on it. I'm really excited about it. Okay, one more, and then we got to start wrapping things up. Sorry we couldn't get to more questions. So what advice would you have for a company wanting to move down to Puerto Rico? And think whether it's from the States or maybe Europe. We have some people in interest showing here from Germany and other places, but what are just 1 or 2 tips, and it can be on the business side or maybe the personal side, that you would give a company moving down here? And let's start with Isabel, and then go to Alberto and Christian.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say come visit first. I think this holds true for whatever you're gonna go in your life. Come visit first, see if you like it, and surround yourself with a great group of business people that can recommend or refer lawyers, accountants, and all that, or start a relationship with a company like Christian's or ours that can you could outsource for a few years and then start your own. That's also things that I have seen in the past and that has happened in the past. So there's a few options, but I would say come visit first, and probably you'll stay here and figure everything out if you come, but come first.
I think that in that line, I think that what makes the most sense, and we do this every time we go to another jurisdiction, reach out to Invest and ask them to put you in contact with a local entrepreneur, business person, whatever is in your line. And we Puerto Ricans, we're hosts. We love to bring people up and talk to them and show them around, and you'll be amazed what you can achieve just by having a Zoom call or a phone call or whatever. And we'll be happy. We'll be very happy to just talk to you guys and get your refer you to people, to lawyers, to agencies, etc. But in general, opening a corporation, you can do it online. It's the details, right? And it's not that complicated, but it's easier if you talk to someone, and we'll hook you up with the right people to do it.
I would add to that. You're the perfect vehicle to make that happen.
Yeah,
correct.
If you're here, get involved in the ecosystem.
Yep. Awesome. Yes. So please do. All second, third, fourth, all of those. Reach out to Invest Puerto Rico if you have interest in anything. We'll connect you with awesome people like you see here, and others as well. Look at our website. We have sector profiles, not just on technology, but on all these different sectors that are growing and burgeoning here, potential customer client sectors for the technologies you're building, all of that. The other thing I'd like to invite everyone to do is get involved. I mean, comprometidos, there's a lot of groups that are doing different initiatives, a lot of support groups. There's accelerators, incubators looking for mentors, and get involved. That's one thing I like. I meet some very interesting people who maybe haven't made the move down here yet, although we're working on it, and I think most of them will come. But is they start mentoring or getting involved or visiting demo day from Parallel 18 or something like that. So just get involved, see what we have to offer, contact any of us, and we'd be happy to help you out. But that's all our time. So thanks for joining us on this Tech Talk. We'll do other webinars in the future, talking on different topics and sectors and benefits of doing business here in Puerto Rico. And we've already done a few awesome ones as well. So check out our YouTube channel. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you later.
Take care,
Thank
guys.
you.